address autocomplete and address verification. I'm happy to turn the time over to Kasia to take it away.
Sorry for that whiplash I gave you at the beginning. Uh, yeah, what's going on over here? So we're going to be talking about mastering autocomplete and verification. And so I'll tell you what we're going to do first, and then I'll hand it over to Camille and Easton. They're the developers. They're going to have that knowledge and be able to explain things really well to you. So first, we're going to talk about what is a valid address to your business. Then we're going to define autocomplete and verification, and then the benefits of using those two together, the two products, and then considerations for setting up each API and then linking other products together. So let's start with what's a valid address. Take it away, Easton and Camille.
All right. So Easton is kind of an expert or does a lot more in the APIs. So he's gonna cover with this part. So Easton, can you tell us what things should you consider when you're thinking about what a valid address is?
Yeah, of course. When I started working here, I just thought a valid address, was any address you could send mail to, but turns out there's lots of different use cases for address data. So I threw some specifics down at the bottom there with Uber, Chase Bank, and Fabletics, all having a different definition of what a valid address looks like to them. Fabletics is probably your more typical, is it mailable? Can I send something there? But on top of that, there's also a difference between can the USPS send mail there and is it parcel valid? Can I get a package there? Will FedEx and UPS, will they deliver mail there? The
Sorry.
for
Oh
Chase
my gosh. You
for
guys, I am
No,
so
that's okay.
sorry.
For
Okay.
Chase Bank, you might be more interested in like fraud detection. Like, is this a valid address? Could mean, does someone live there? Did we have to adjust the zip code? Because if we did, then that's a very common way a lot of our customers will detect, oh, this is fraudulent. Like this person doesn't actually live here, so we should not be approving a credit card for these people. And then Uber's kind of just the catch-all. They just care, can I drop a person off here or pick someone up from here? They don't care if you can send a package there. So they're just concerned about a geocode. So on the next slide here, we have an example of a US Street API response. Maybe we won't. Do we have the next slide? Thank you. So here's an example of what comes back to you for a US Street response. So there's that RDI value there, which will specify if an address is residential or commercial. So that could be important if you're B2B and you're expecting it to be commercial and it comes back residential. You be like, hey, wait a second, like I'm looking for a commercial one. You might be concerned with how precise your geocode is. Um, like I said, if it's postal or if it's vacant. So all of those things, just to say that there's a lot of data given back for you to determine if an address is valid for you. It's not just as simple as can I send mail here?
Yeah, address verification that Smarty has is very flexible in that way, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and Camille is more of our expert on autocomplete here. So why don't you tell us about autocomplete?
Yeah, so autocomplete goes hand in hand with the front end side of things, and that's kind of my area of expertise. So with autocomplete, that's where address suggestions are going to appear in the dropdown for fast and easy selection. So yeah, it ideally autocomplete should be extremely speedy. There shouldn't be a delay from when you type to seeing those suggestions there. Places that we've seen it used are for customer onboarding. So customers are their information is being entered into a form somewhere, making that process smoother. Autocomplete can help with that. Serviceability checks. This one I learned about recently. Kasia helped me learn about it. Is for services like maybe say like internet or maybe like solar coverage. Websites sometimes will have the check there where you type in your address and then it'll tell you like, oh yeah, you're included in our coverage or not. And so having not complete there again makes it a super speedy process for that. And then form filling just in general, and that kind of goes along with like e-commerce checkout too, is like it could be for billing addresses, it could be for shipping addresses, or even like you mentioned Easton, like the case of like Uber, it could be autocomplete to know like where to pick up or drop someone off. And that's where autocomplete is used.
So verification. Uh, I think I originally also thought, why on earth would you need verification if you have autocomplete already giving you a valid address? Well, it's because those 55 metadata points that we said per address. There's lots of ways to determine if an address is valid for you. Some other ones that are mentioned down there that we didn't mention on earlier slides, things like database cleansing, making sure you don't have repeat addresses. There's a standardization process that goes through addresses to make sure, that things like if you typed in road spelled out and it gets simplified down to RD, or if you type out south and it gets simplified to S, your computer is dumb and it's just going to be doing a comparison like, oh, south, S, those are different. That's a different new address. So it's good to have verification for making sure you don't have duplicates inside of your database, and making sure that everything in your database is also valid. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And I think maybe it's worth noting too, Smarty has the Smarty key. Can you tell us a little bit about how Smarty key is
Yeah.
useful with address
Yeah,
verification?
Smarty Key is even better for database cleansing because it's a unique identifier, a persistent unique identifier for every address. So it stays the same no matter if the address, if the street name changes, or zip plus 4 codes change all the time. If that changes, the Smarty Key will stay persistent, and that way you're able to even more clearly be able to dedupe your your database, make sure that it doesn't have a bunch of repeats in it.
Awesome.
Sorry, my screen is frozen. I'm trying to go to the next slide.
Without technical difficulties, are we even a software company?
Yeah,
I feel like it.
That's a good point.
Okay,
It's not even a real presentation if you don't have a technical difficulty.
cool. Well,
it's just Easton deleting the slides again. That's what's
Yeah, it's me.
happening.
I'm just editing the slides as we go, making sure that making sure we don't repeat any content, just making I'm just scanning through, making sure nothing's being repeated.
Well, while we're facing that technical difficulty, Easton,
Yes.
do you want to tell me I might be spoiling the future of these slides. I didn't intend
Spoiling the future of these slides.
your practices, but verification, is it best done just completely on the back end after everything is coming in, or do you feel like verification has a place on the front end as well, or should we just worry about front end data being autocomplete and then worry
No,
about
I mean,
verification on the back?
I think that we will talk about this, is what I think, but I think that autocomplete also can do things for you on the front end, as well as verification. They could both perform the same thing on the front end, but using them in tandem will, I think, give you the best experience. Oh, look at that. Autocomplete and verification together.
Spoiled. Sorry.
He doesn't even have access to the slides. I don't know how he knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything to that, Camille?
Yeah, I guess since we're on that topic, the benefit to providing the verification on the front end side of things is you're able to tell the user and give them an opportunity to correct the address. So like say if the address comes back as like only partially verified, then we can tell the users that, and then they can go in and say, oh yeah, like I just forgot to put in my secondary number, or oh, I mistyped this a little bit. Like I'm sure you have examples, Easton, where if you mistype it just the right way, then it's going to match it to the wrong address instead of the right address. And we try and account for that right in our API, but it could happen, and being able to pass that on to the user to be able to fix instead of just like, oh yeah, this is like mostly correct. We'll just send it to or like we think it's probably correct and we'll check in the back end side of things, misses the opportunity.
Yeah, and autocomplete in no way guarantees that they're going to click on the right one that comes from the drop down. So it's good to be like, hey, wait a second, you still forgot the apartment number, and they go, oh yeah, rats, I forgot to do the apartment number part. So definitely good to give them some sort of feedback on the front end. All right, setup time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Camille's definitely more versed in setting up the autocomplete API. So, how do we set up the autocomplete API?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go over first like a few kind of general things, and then I'll dive into specifics about the US versus international setup. So for both of them, you're going to want to make sure you have your keys set up to authenticate with the APIs. If you're doing things on a website, then you're going to be using an embedded key where it's the keys associated with the host name of your website. But if you're doing things more like on an app or server side, then you can use a key token pair because that key token pair won't be exposed to the user, so it'll be secure. Once you have that set up, all of our APIs use that same type of authentication. So for the US address autocomplete API specifically, something you need to consider is when do you want to trigger calling the API? Do you want to call it immediately after the first keystroke, which we do provide very rich results for that? So maybe that's something that can work for you. It does mean that you're using a lookup every time you're calling the API, so after every keystroke. So if that's a concern, you could do instead after the first 5 keystrokes, then you're displaying address suggestions to the user. My preference is to just show it as soon as possible because I think then you're just helping that process of filling out that form be even smoother. Something else that you can set up with the US and I think international as well, we kind of talked about, or we talked about in preparation, maybe Easton, after I explain it, you can clarify, is with the US address autocomplete, you can include or exclude kind of like filtering by city, state, and zip code, I believe. And then international has similar filtering that you can do. It's not exactly the same, but similar, right?
Yeah. So, I believe it's just you can only include. Yeah, you can only include on international, no excluding.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So that could be helpful. Like maybe you're a local business, so you're only going to be shipping nearby, and so you want to be including really just like a specific cities, or maybe even just a specific state in that case. And by default, if you don't change any of the configuration, it's going to be filtering those results by your geolocation of wherever this API call is being called from based on the IP address. And so that's also super, super useful too. Like you're going to be seeing relevant results and not just whichever result is closest to matching. Like, especially if you've only entered in like a few characters, it's really nice to see the ones that are close to you. Another thing you gotta figure out what's going to work for you is, do you want just mailable addresses or do you want non-mailable included as well? By default, I believe it's mailable addresses only, but you can turn on to have non-mailable address as well. Like we talked before, depending on what a valid address is to you will determine your choice there. For secondary numbers, there's kind of like a few more steps here. You can see an example on the slide here. We have an address that has, it's 1371 South Walnut Street, unit, ... So the autocomplete results from the API will tell you that there's 24 addresses at that partial address. And so then you can present that to the user, and then when they click on that, you make another API request that will give you all of the unit numbers with that address as well. So then you can present that to the user next. Unit numbers are super important, especially in particular for shipping things, because then it's going to be making sure that it gets to the right apartment and not just in general at your mailbox. And then you're like, where did my mail go? Did my neighbors accidentally pick it up because it was just there at our mailbox? So that's where secondary addresses, it's really neat that we have that in the autocomplete as well, and that it can handle that. So for international autocomplete, well, do you have anything to add to US address autocomplete, Easton, before I move on?
Well, I was just going to ask, do you have to implement this secondary lookup thing, or can I just out of the box just type out an address that has a secondary in it?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, if users don't want to click on that kind of a secondary address suggestion, they can just continue to type more and type in the secondary number, and then the autocomplete will match to that as well, or they can just keep typing out the whole thing by hand as well.
Okay.
But yeah, just however you have it set up, that's going to be an additional lookup. And I mean, you can't control what your users are doing. If they prefer to type out the whole address, they're going to do that. But hopefully the autocomplete is going to help them do less clicks, and really you won't be needing to use so many autocomplete lookups. So for international, it's a little bit different. We have kind of a two-step minimum API calls, or two API calls, 2 steps to get the full address suggestions. The first call is going to be getting what we call simple suggestions that just have all of the address components combined into one field in the response. And then as users click on to a suggestion that matches that, where it only has, there could be cases where maybe there's secondary numbers and then they'll have to be making more calls. I think I'm overcomplicating that, but let me just kind of back up. So first call is to get the simple suggestions, and then the second call is to get the address components. So you make your first call, get the suggestions that you're seeing here, and then say a user clicks on one, it's gonna then you call the API again, and it'll give you a response with all of the address components separated out. And that's useful because then if your address is what's the word? It's multiple input fields. So you have like street, city, state, zip separated, or I guess it would be postal code since it's international. Then you'll get those components. So then on the front end, you can fill in each of those input fields with those components separated. Because yeah, the simple suggestions, it's all together. You don't want to parse those out. We do that work for you. And that second call with the components is what costs you a lookup on international address autocomplete.
Yeah. Well, great. Then we have verification.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about this again? You're kind of
Yes,
the
I
verification
love
covering
to.
that here.
So we've already talked about like seeing a result, what a US street lookup looks like. I think what's important to note is there are different configurations available and several different features you can enable. The first one we have listed here is Project US at. Project US at is for the healthcare industry. There's a certain format you need to follow, and so that's a parameter you can provide to make sure you get that format the way you want it. Component analysis. I cannot say enough good things about component analysis because it's just the greatest thing that's ever happened to address verification. But and I always like to point out, I'm not even tooting my own horn here. I didn't write this. But component analysis will tell you how each of your components was derived. So maybe you got it all right and it just says match, everything's perfect. That's great. But sometimes it's like, oh, I forgot a pre-direction. And it'll be like, hey, we added in this north for you. Or sometimes it'll be I typoed and I put road instead of street. And it'll say we replaced it, we changed it, we changed the street suffix. And then other times there might be just typos and it'll just be spelling. There was a little spelling error in your street name, so we fixed that. So component analysis is another feature you can enable. Batching addresses, you can batch them. You can do a single lookup. There's different pros and cons to doing that. And then there's also different geocode licenses. So sometimes, you want the rooftop geocodes. You want to know exactly where it is. And sometimes you're not super concerned if where exactly it is. You just want to know what zip code it's in or what street it's on. So you can there's various different parameters you can configure for your verification to make sure that you're getting the info back that you need.
It's extremely customizable, and that's awesome.
Yeah, just like autocomplete and US Street, both out of the box just work, but there's many parameters you can use to configure it to make sure you're getting exactly what you need.
I do want to attest to that. So we did on the marketing team, we did a campaign where we were mailing out little Lego figurines to people, to leads, to talk to them about address data. But in order to send them that, we needed their addresses. So we would send them an email that says, hey, we need your address so that we can send you a Lego person. We just gave them a link that went to a landing page. And on that landing page, it was just what's your email address and what's your mailing address. And we put autocomplete on that. And initially, it was super easy to set up. We put it in there, and then we realized, oh crap, people are putting in non-postals, or people are putting in addresses that are getting completed, but we can't mail to them for one reason or the other. And it was very easy to just go in and add a parameter. Oh, by the way, only pull from this data set, and oh, by the way, only pull from these states or whatever. And it was easy to do for someone, a HubSpot dummy like me, could do all of that editing. So I am a client. There's my testimonial.
No,
Yes.
that's awesome. Also, Andrew, you are definitely not just a HubSpot dummy. Like, I know you do, there's so much that you do, and yeah, it's amazing that I'm not amazed because you're a dummy that you were able to set that up, but it takes a lot of skill to set that up too. Not that our APIs aren't easy to integrate with, but it does still take technical know-how. So
Well,
you're
thank you.
great.
I'm not a total dummy, but it was
Yeah.
editable, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And we were able to make it so that as people filled them out, it was only addresses that we could actually send to, and it made it very easy.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think Andrew possibly already spoiled most of this slide, but is there anything on here that we still want to go over, Camille?
Um, yeah, so Andrew's use case is great. I still want to touch on some of these. So on the front end side of things, things to consider is like when you're verifying the address, what do you want to show the user when the address is valid versus invalid? Do you want, when it's valid, do you just not show anything at all? Because it's like, oh, this address is fine. No need to alert the user. Maybe you do want to alert them because it gives them a little bit of like, hey, you're doing a good job filling out this form. That's something to consider and something you can do. Um, Another thing is, are you going to stop the form from being submitted if the address is invalid? Or in the case of like billing addresses, I know it's a little bit more like, oh yeah, we can accept this address if it's not mailable. So in those cases, yeah, you can keep form submission going, but if you're shipping something, you probably don't want users to be able to enter in non-mailable addresses because that cost is gonna come back to you. Um, Something that me and Ethan, we were laughing about as we put this together is a lot of websites we've seen have some form of address validation where it will say after you fill out the address with using autocomplete and then you submit it, it verifies it and then says, oh, is this the address you meant? And in most cases, it's just adding the zip +4 code. And everything else is unchanged.
Which, yeah,
And
most people don't even know there's a +4 code. So,
yeah,
it's just like, well, I don't know. Like, sure, I'll take this one.
like this address has more stuff, or maybe sure, I might as well. And it kind of is adding in an extra step to the process, in my opinion. And I think there's sometimes maybe where having that pop-up could be helpful. Like you were talking about how there's the component analysis. That's what
Yeah.
it's called, correct? Yeah. Maybe the component analysis is saying like, oh, we actually changed a lot more things when we verified the address. And so maybe you do want to show that to the user just to have them double check, like, is this address still good? But in most cases where the address is like just adding the zip +4, you don't need to be asking users that. You can just accept it and move on.
Just
It's
take it.
fine. They can't verify like, oh, is that zip +4 good? I don't know. I don't know what my +4 code is. I just let Smarty do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Something else we hit on, and I'm not sure if there's I'm not sure if the next slide is going to highlight it or not, but we also talked about zip +4s. They change quite frequently. So um, that's one reason people aren't going to be familiar with their zip +4 codes. But on top of that, you need to be consistently verifying your data and making sure that it's always up to date because um, oh, you know what? I know exactly when this came up. We haven't talked about it at all, but we've talked about your browser being able to autofill the address in. And sometimes your address does change, and that's why it's important to have autocomplete there and not just rely on the browser autofill because the browser autofill can very quickly get out of date. Was there anything else we had on that? You remember?
I think you mostly covered it, but yeah, the browser autofill is usually what it's called. Is like where your browser's storing your addresses or passwords, and your password manager can also do that. And that's great. But yeah, like you said, sometimes the zip+4 code can get out of date, and that can cause delays in mailing if you're putting in the wrong one. I think USPS is probably okay at it. I don't know, but it seems like the better data you put on your packages in your envelopes when you're mailing them, the better.
Right.
Um,
Did you have
so
anything more you wanted to say about front end verification?
no, I think that covers up for the verification. So yeah, let's talk about linking the products together. I know we kind of touched on earlier talking about like how autocomplete and verification work hand in hand and why they're important, but um I guess yeah, what else can we say about it?
I think Smarty Key is a really important part. The autocomplete API does not give you Smarty Key, which is why you need to then proceed to validate your address using US Street API. And on top of that, you'll need to use enhanced mode so you can get a Smarty Key back. But with the Smarty Key, you're able to link that to all of the enrichment data, and you could link those two up. We'll link all three of those up, I guess, because we were talking about earlier as well. But there's a tool we have internally to look things up in the enrichment data, and the way you do that is there's a field you can type that uses autocomplete. And so as you're typing, it pops down and it just seamlessly handles this whole process for you. So instead of, being like, oh, here's my Smarty key, give me the enrichment data, you get help auto-completing your address, and then it throws down whatever enrichment data you're looking for. So that's just one way you can chain these products together. And yeah, it's all through Smarty Key.
Yeah, yeah. And that tool, I know you said it's internally, but I just want to make sure it's clear that that tool, if you have the enrichment subscription available and US Street and US Autocomplete, then any user can log into their account dashboard and then try out that tool too and
Yes,
see how we've connected everything.
that's true. It's not an internal tool.
Yeah. I know we use it a lot internally too, like a lot of the tools. And
You're
that's
right.
how
It's
good they
public
are,
tools.
is that we use them ourselves too, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thank you. So do we have any questions?
Any questions? While people are thinking about what questions they want to ask, I will run through a little bit more information or just a reminder. So in half an hour, we're going to be doing the Mega Ultra Fun Time Friendship Fiesta Deluxe. Again, come back and win a gift card. The code word for this session is, I have to pull it up again, is enrichment. That's the code word for this session, so don't forget to do that. So we talked about, and this has been very useful, thank you, but we talked about how different ways to implement it and how this works really. And the customizableness of it is what I think some people miss. So we talked about in a previous session this cool company called Fabletics. So they've used both of these, autocomplete and verification. And so they would have someone like it drop down and give the autocomplete, and they would get to, once they picked their address, it would say, okay, well, we know, I mean, you clicked it, it's in the autocomplete, it must be good. But then an actual little checkbox would show up saying, we've checked it right now on the verification. We're not waiting for you to submit your order before we validate. And then we have to say, hey, sorry, we can't send this. They're putting that right up front and letting the user look at it. Do you feel like that's a common setup, or do you think there are other ways that people are more likely to set up?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up because I think I had wanted to talk about that, but I had just missed it. But yeah, you can choose when you want to submit it to verification. And I've seen it where people do it just when you hit the submit button, or like you said, right after you click the autocomplete suggestion, it's filling in your form. And the way that I know we do it on some of our forms on the website is similar to that. So once there's enough data to verify the address, which is usually you have the street and then the city and state, or the city or the street, city, state, or the street and zip code. That gives you, for US addresses. For a country, we'd also need the country. Once you have at least that minimum information, then you can submit it for verification and see if the address is valid or not. So yeah, I really like that approach to it where it's like as soon as you hit autocomplete, it's filling in the form. The form detects that there's enough data to submit to verification, and then just go ahead and do that.
Sure. So maybe Kasia can respond to this a little bit more, but the way that that is set up gives the idea that autocomplete is for a better user experience, but verification is for the organization. Do you feel like that's true, or do you think that there's benefits both ways?
No, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, you just want to get those people across the finish line, especially in e-commerce, right? Like you want them to complete the order, or even in B2B, you want to get that lead into your system, but then you want to keep your data fresh and clean. And so you should be periodically using verification to clean your data as well, because especially like internal teams, they probably have their fingers in the data a lot too, and mistakes can still happen. So having autocomplete like internal in your internal processes is also a really smart idea, and it helps people keep it clean all throughout the process.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. There's a question here from Cynthia. We're working on updating our address database. It's a lot older than 20 years and has lots of incorrect information. If string data, let's see, if string data again, is it better to not save the +4? Oh, sorting. Sorry, thanks for correcting.
Sorting.
If sorting data again, is it better to not save the +4 because of those changes? We won't be able to re-verify the addresses very often. And I think re-verifying addresses repeatedly is less and less a viable solution as the databases get larger, right? Because if you're going to be validating hundreds of millions of addresses multiple times a year, you're going to run into some problems. So yeah, I don't think you saying we won't be able to re-verify addresses often. I feel like that's a pretty normal situation. But the ultimate question is it better to not save the +4 if you're updating a database or checking a database very infrequently?
So I think my knee-jerk reaction is to just say it depends on your use case, but assuming that it's the general use case, I think it's useful to have the +4 code for I don't remember exactly how Camille worded it, but just saying like it's better to have, more information for the USPS than less. That being said, I don't think I have ever used a +4 code when using the USPS. So I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's I mean after 20 years you're gonna have a lot of +4 codes that are out of date for sure. Um, so I guess it really does boil down to what the use case is, but I don't see it being necessary in a lot of situations.
Sure. And for our tools especially, we're not requisite on having a +4 in order to do a
Yeah.
verification.
Yeah.
And also, just in case we have anyone in the session that does re-verify all of their addresses, I did want to say that there are use cases where you will want to re-verify big databases, but it's once again not the common case. In fact, we're one of those cases. We re-verify our addresses constantly. Um, but yeah, I agree. It's not the common use case.
Okay, excellent. So let's say I'm sending out a monthly newsletter or a monthly mailing of some sort. Do I need to check my mailing database every month? What are your thoughts on that? Once a quarter? All the new
I have a
ones?
thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think at that point, I would, yeah, like we kind of said before, I'm less concerned like monthly that the zip 4 is changing and that like I don't think that's gonna end up getting me like returned mail or this mail is gonna get delivered to the wrong place. I would be more concerned about things changing. Like I know sometimes there's like address updates where it's like, oh, this address got rezoned to a different city, maybe stuff like that happens, or maybe did this house get like taken down and now it's an apartment complex, like that kind of thing more would be, I think I'd be concerned about. But you said maybe you have more ideas, like you
Yeah,
know a lot about what data pieces are changing.
yeah, the most common thing to change is going to be zip +4 code, which we've talked about doesn't really matter, but the street name and sometimes the primary number. will sometimes change, and the USPS tracks that. It's known as a lax link. And basically your mail's not going, like, it's just going to be the wrong address entirely sometimes. I am not 100% sure, but I think that the USPS is able to handle that a lax link internally if you send mail, because that is their product. But that being said, it really depends on if you're sending a newsletter out to every single house in the States, then yeah, you probably should revalidate every time because there's gonna be a ton of change. If you're only sending it to like 1,000 people, you're probably fine because it's unlikely that those addresses are changing. But also, all that being said, to be really safe, I would verify every time. So if you have unlimited lookups, I would absolutely verify every single time.
He works for Smarty and he thinks you should validate all your addresses once a day.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying if you have unlimited lookups and you're sending out 1,000 things, like, it doesn't even matter how many you're sending. If you have unlimited lookups, I think it's totally worth your time to just run through, validate it. If you're trying to conserve them, yeah, if you've already validated it once, you're probably good to hold on to it for a while. But I am just saying the safest option would be to revalidate,
Sure.
verify, I
It's
guess.
almost like you have to find your happy medium in value. If
Yeah.
I only check once every 6 months, maybe I should check how many of those addresses changed and then start to make an evaluation after that.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Kasia, any closing thoughts? We've heard very little from you, but I know that you have so much experience when it comes to the way address autocomplete is used in different industries. You mentioned retail, but are there other ways people are using address autocomplete or anything else that you'd like to share with this audience?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of already touched on it in HubSpot, how we had put it in there. So B2B, I think it's still very useful because anytime you're having anybody fill out a form, the whole point is to get them to do it quickly because, our attention spans are short and also people just don't want to do that kind of stuff. So having that autocomplete is so helpful, especially since we're doing so many things on our phone. It's a lot easier to have a typo or a fat finger mistake versus just selecting the right address and having it go forth in whatever form fill or checkout experience that you have your users going through. And I mean, I think the two products together, it's almost like you're making sure that you're going to have that peace of mind because sure you have them fill out the form, which is awesome, but sometimes people bypass it. Like my dad is the kind of person that he's like, no, I'm filling out my own address. So he would bypass it, and he could have a typo. So having that double check against with verification, I just think you're going to save money and you're also going to have way more reliable data and then just like peace of mind in your processes.
Excellent. Speaking of our phones, right here on the screen, there's a QR code. Do you want to? I don't scan nefarious QR codes. Tell me what this one goes to.
Uh, doesn't it go to where we put it?
Where did we put it to go to? I don't know.
Is this in a template?
I thought it was just to like the expo stuff.
Oh,
It
okay.
looks like Easton's taking one for the
It
team.
is to smarty.com. Let's see. I think it's just smarty.com.
Oh,
Good.
great.
There you go.
I'm obviously very good with slides, as I've proven today. So,
Which, yeah, quick shout out to smarty.com. I referenced it during the presentation to fact check us a few times. So it's very easy to navigate and figure out what you're trying to find.
Super sharp.
The great
well,
side.
great. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this session. Hopefully you found it useful and you've learned a little bit more about how address autocomplete and address verification go together. Thank you, Kasia, for putting this together, and Easton and Camille for presenting.
Right. Thank you. Bye.
bye.